Alright, so if you want to work through this problem first before looking at the solutions, go ahead and just pause the video. Otherwise, keep on playing it. And so we'll just go through kind of tracing this code over here to the left and then answering the questions to the right. So let's see here. So it looks like we are looking at a method called find longest. It takes in an argument, one argument, and they tell you the intended purpose of this. And how do I make that go away? Alright, so they say that it's meant to find the longest consecutive blocks of whatever input they give you. So if they gave you 10, what you would do is you take a look at the number of consecutive 10s that you can find within the arrays. In this case, if we're looking at this example right here, it should be the fact that there is a 10 there, a 10 there, and a 10 there. So that's the longest consecutive sequence. And so what we have is it should return 3. Okay, let's remove the notes. Alright, so let's go and see if that's actually doing what it's supposed to do. Alright, so here's our target. This is our current count. So we have to iterate through that block and reset our count anytime that we find one that is not the target. So we're looking at the longest sequence. And so for example, if you're sitting there and you're counting all the different blocks, let's say you are looking for 10, you find it here, and then you figure out that, all right, as long as I keep on finding 10s, I should keep a count. But as soon as I find a number, in this case 15, that is not the number we're looking for, I'm gonna reset my count. And if 2 is currently higher than my current maximum, right, total maximum, then you should go ahead and keep track of 2 as being your largest consecutive block so far. Moving on, let's see here, we have ourselves an enhanced for loop. So for every value in this array called nums, store them in that temp value variable. So now if it says here value is equal to target, and it increments, so every time you find it, you're going to increment something called length count. Length count is initialized here, so let's do that in red, as 0. Okay, and then if that's not the case, it looks like you are going to go ahead and, if you have to, check to see if you have to update the max length. Okay, and then let's keep going down. If length count is greater than the max length, then max length is equal to length count, return max length. So it looks like there's another if statement outside of the entire for loop, and that is for the sole purpose of catching the very last iteration, and then finally you return length count. So now the problem is, what does this actually do rather than the intended? What does it end up doing? And so let's take a look at our questions. The method find longest does not work as intended. Which of the following best describes the value returned by a call to find longest? So now what we're going to do is we're just going to take a look at these and see if we can eliminate some. A, it is the length of the shortest consecutive block of the value target in nums. Is it the shortest? I don't think it's going to find the shortest just based on what we went through here. It is the length of the array nums. It's definitely not going to be the length because it's all based on length count. Oh, sorry. Wrong one. So it can't be B. Let's keep going. C, the number of occurrences of the value target in nums. So the number of occurrences. It looks like that might be it, because if you take a look, we are incrementing length count anytime we find that target matches the value or each element, right? The element in the array. And we never actually reset length count for each iteration. So that means that since we're not resetting it, we are accumulating all of the number of times we find that value is equal to target. So in this case, C is probably the best answer. Let's take a look at the second, or number 12. Which of the following changes should be made so that the method find longest works correctly? So I guess I've already gave you a hint that it's not working properly because it doesn't reset anything. So let's see if we can find a spot where it's going to reset. So if we take a look at A, if you insert length count is equal to 0 between lines 2 and 3, will that work? Between lines 2 and 3 would be over here, which is to say, reset it. Each time you look at a number, you're going to reset length count. That's not going to work because it's not going to allow you to count consecutive values. You're always resetting the count to 0 each iteration. So the maximum number you can have is 1. B, insert statement length count equals 0 between 8 and 9. Between 8 and 9 would be over here, which is in the else statement, which is to say that we're resetting it before we update maximum. That's not going to work because you want to update the maximum ever consecutive count before you reset length count. Otherwise, if you reset length count to 0, this condition will never be true. Let's take a look at D. So it can't be that one. Or C. Between 10 and 11. Between 10 and 11, you still have the same problem there. You're resetting it before you're updating max length. So that's not going to work. D, insert between 11 and 12. So the question is, can we reset it here? The problem with that is it's only going to reset length count if it is greater than our max length. And regardless of whether or not max length gets updated, we should be resetting length count to 0. So that leaves us with E, which is to say after, so it's going to go right here. So again, regardless of whether or not you're going to update max length, you should be resetting length count. So that's problem 11 and 12.